Thank you. Thank you for joining this really important talk this afternoon. My name is Michael Middleman. I am the president of the Westchester Jewish Council, and I am honored and privileged to welcome you all to this really important talk on the state of anti-Semitism in America. It's no surprise to any of us. We all know, this is why you're here, that anti-Semitism is, of course, a growing problem in the country, and we are blessed to have one of our good friends and experts truly on anti-Semitism speak with us today from our member organization and great friend and partner, AJC, American Jewish Committee. And so it is my distinct privilege to introduce to you all Myra Clark-Siegel of AJC, who will lead this discussion. Myra.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Elliot and Pam, and everybody at Westchester Jewish Council for the opportunity to join you all today. And thank you also for Westchester Jewish Council for everything you do day in and day out for our community. And thank you to the clergy and the presidents and the executive directors and community leaders who are joining us today for this conversation. What I'd like to do is do a little bit of a presentation to you all and then open it up for Q&A and really have this as a robust conversation. And I also want to welcome my colleague Jill Friedman, who is off screen but with us today, and our AJC Westchester Fairfield Regional President, Wendy Lubkin, who is joining us today as well. So again, I want to make this conversational, but I do think it's important to do a little bit of setting the table before we dive into questions and answers. So if you'll bear with me a little bit, I'm going to share some information with you. So the first thing is, most of you know AJC, but just to take a moment, AJC, or American Jewish Committee, is the oldest Jewish civil rights organization in the country. We were established in 1906. Since day one of our founding, we have been and continue to be fiercely nonpartisan, because the issues that we work on are too important to ascribe themselves to any one political party, whether here in the United States or any of the countries around the world with which we work, to any party or individual or viewpoint. What we're going to be talking about today is the State of Anti-Semitism in America report, which is the largest and comprehensive report of its kind of the lived experience of the Jewish community here in the United States. This is the 6th year that AJC has undertaken this survey. And what we have done for the past 5 years is also conduct a parallel comparative survey of civil society writ large, so that we truly have a picture and we have data both from the baseline, the first time we undertook this survey, which, by the way, was after the horrific Tree of Life massacre and 6 years ago. And that is why we undertook this in the first place, was to understand what the lived experience was of the Jewish community. And so that first year was just of the Jewish community. And every year since that we have done this now, we have also undertaken, again, the largest survey of its kind of civil society writ large, so that we understand where there are areas of commonality, where there are disparities, where we all need to redouble our efforts in the work that we're doing. And now that we have been doing this survey, by the way, for more than half a decade, we have very significant data points that we share. And we share this in the work that we do at AJC Westchester Fairfield with 4 major audiences. One is governmental outreach, working with municipal, state, and federal officials. One is interfaith, intergroup partners, working with diplomats. We work with UN ambassadors and consuls general. West Fair works with 30 countries of the UN member nations, and our colleagues in other areas around New York and our area have other countries that they're responsible for. And finally, education. We are working with K through 12 administrators and heads of school here in our region, both in independent and public schools. The reason that's important for you to have that understanding of those 4 primary areas of our focus is because, again, we take this information, we educate, we raise awareness with officials, and work with them to take action. And we can talk about some of those actions. And finally, I'll also note that we also work with our younger leaders. We have a program actually in our 9th year this year called LIFT, or Leaders for Tomorrow, which is an advocacy training program for high school students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Because again, we know they're actually the leaders for today. They are the ones on the front lines on social media and in their schools dealing with all of this, even before they get to college campuses. So those applications, by the way, for our fall cohort are open, and we can talk about all of that. And the other thing that I'll note, by the way, before we dive into this data, is that we're having this conversation between the holidays of Purim and Pesach, which I think is so appropriate. And again, thank you to Westchester Jewish Council. If we think about the kind of meta messages of Purim and Pesach, we were under threat. We needed a leader to stand forward and save our people with Purim. And of course, Pesach is the holiday of liberation, of freedom. And at the conclusion of every Seder, we say next year in Jerusalem. So Israel being a very prominent place in all of our hearts, our souls, and our lives. And as we look at some of this information, how important it is that we're talking about this today. So with that, let's kind of dive into it. I want to start off with the good news, and Jill, maybe we'll go to the next slide. So the good news, believe it or not, with a Jewish audience, I'm starting off with good news. The good news is nearly 9 out of 10 of Americans overall are concerned about the increase in anti-Semitism. And these are also Americans who are saying that anti-Semitism has increased over the past 5 years. But at the same time that we're going to share some good news, I also want to share what the old Jewish joke about a telegram, which today would be a tweet, is start worrying, details to follow. And let's look at why that is the case. And we'll look at the next slide. So I'm going to give you 6 major takeaways, and then we're going to unpack this a little bit and dive into it a little more deeply. So number 1 is this one. Now, this is very important because nearly 7 in 10 of all religiously based hate crimes in 2023, and by the way, the FBI tracks hate crimes reported to them by law enforcement agencies through a system called NIBRS, this is a very, very important fact. And the reason is that the Jewish community is the #1 target historically over a number of years of all religiously based hate crimes. The Black community is the #1 target historically over a number of years of all racially based hate crimes. Here is why this is particularly important at this moment in time. Over the past number of years, and we know, of course, that the American Jewish community is roughly 2.4% of the American population. Over the past few years, the findings on religiously motivated hate crimes against the American Jewish community were roughly 55 to 60%. So even in 2023, which was the most of the year happened before the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel, we still see a huge spike going. It was 55%, and now it is nearly 70%. That gives us all pause. Now, of course, this is nothing that you don't know in your lived experience, but this data point is critically important as we are working with government officials and law enforcement officials to help them understand just how large this spike is and how large the Jewish community is in terms of being a target of hate crimes, simply because we are Jewish. And I will just say that the hate crimes against the Black community is 60% in 2023. Nobody wants to be the #1 on these issues, and we all stand together against hate of any kind, against any community in any way. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to give you 6 kinds of takeaways. Number 1, American Jews feel less safe as a Jew in the United States after the October 7th Hamas terror attacks in Israel. Nearly 8 in 10 Americans. That is a huge increase. In 2021, for example, when we did this survey, it was 60%. and now it's jumped almost 18 points since then. That is a dramatic rise by any measure. And this is after the Hamas attacks on October 7th. Again, I don't have to tell you this information. This is your lived experiences, all of our lived experiences, but this information puts it into crystal clear information and data for our officials. Another headline, 1 in 3 American Jews have been the personal target of anti-Semitism, in person or virtually, at least once over the past 12 months. And again, here, I'm just going to roll through a few things. It's okay, Jill. We'll show that. 1 out of 3. That is astonishing. And that includes here in Westchester County, throughout New York, and throughout our region. And then we're going to show you another headline. The third headline that is important is that nearly 6 in 10 American Jews have changed their behavior over the past 12 months out of fear of anti-Semitism. And you'll see on this slide, this is a sharp increase over previous years, jumping from 38% in 2022, excuse me, to 46% in 2023, and now nearly 6 in 10 in 2024. Excuse me. So again, this means people are changing their behavior. They may be tucking their Magen David in their shirt. Men may be wearing a baseball cap over their kippah. Or we may not be sending our kids or even going ourselves to synagogue, to bar or bat mitzvahs, to Jewish day schools, to events where we are afraid that if we outwardly identify ourselves as Jewish, we could face backlash. That could be many of us who wear a yellow ribbon for the hostages all the time, but if we're going on the train to New York City these days, we may hide it, or we may tuck something in or put a jacket over it. That is unacceptable in the United States of America today. The next headline is a little bit of good news. So I have to give you a little bit of good news with these disturbing findings. 3 good news headlines. Again, nearly 7 in 10 US adults believe that anti-Semitism is a problem in the United States today. There's a little more good news. So people have heard about the term anti-Semitism, which itself is a complicated term. So it means we are all doing together collectively the work to make sure that people are aware of the term of anti-Semitism, what it means, and how they can take action. That is good news. It means that people are more attuned to it. Another good piece of good news is that 85% of American adults believe that the statement, quote, "Israel has no right to exist," unquote, is anti-Semitic. That's also very important, very good news. And then the third piece is that nearly 9 in 10, nearly 100% of all Americans say that anti-Semitism affects society as a whole and that everyone is responsible for combating it. So again, the work that everybody is doing together here is having a significant impact because it means that people are recognizing that this is a whole of society job that we have to do, and that it cannot be and should not be incumbent just on the Jewish community to quote unquote solve this or fix it, just as we would never expect any other minority community to solve or address that issue. So I want to skip, let's go, Jill, to slide 6 for a second. Sorry about that. And again, nearly 100%. And we know that we don't get unanimity on anything from the Jewish community, but this is the lived experience of American Jews who say that anti-Semitism is a problem in the United States today. Let's keep going. Again, we've seen an increase. This is very important because part of why this is so important is that it does not depend who is in the White House. And again, as I mentioned, AJC is fiercely nonpartisan, but there is a recognition that no matter who is in the White House or who is in power here in the United States, we have to be swivel-headed here in the United States. We see it on the far left, and we see it on the far right, and we see it in religious extremism, and we'll look at some of that. We'll unpack that a little bit in a minute. Let's keep going. Again, this is the only national survey of the Jewish community of its kind that gives us a snapshot of a full year after the October 7th terror attacks in Israel. So this shows us that that has had a chilling effect on the Jewish community here in the United States. Again, these are all the things you know. We have to have increased security at our synagogues. We have to have increased security at events for our community. We have to have increased security and even measures of security and concerns before we go to a JCC or go to any event. And that is the reality that we're facing. American Jews do not feel safe right now. Let's keep going. So again, this is really important because again, we've seen that American adults are really understanding, they're hearing the term anti-Semitism more in a way that is important so that they're hearing it and they're understanding it is a problem. And they, again, have noted nearly 100%, 9 out of 10 Americans say that it's a whole of society effort that needs to be undertaken. And yet we still have work to do. So if you look in the top part of this slide, you'll see that the work that we have to do, no surprise to any of us involved in this arena, is with a younger generation. There is, even in the 18 to 29 age demographic versus 30 and up, you see that there is a differential between hearing the term anti-Semitism and knowing what it means. So it means that older Americans have an understanding, have an awareness, have a recognition. We have to redouble our efforts with younger Americans. Let's go to the next slide. Again, we talked about changing behavior and some of the ways that it's manifest. Let's keep going. And again, the personal target that Jews have been. Some of this is online, some of it is in person, some of it is in K through 12 schools, some of it is in university campuses. We all know that it is everywhere, and it is incumbent upon all of us to do this work together. Let's keep going. Okay, this is really important because we oversampled younger Jews this year. We did this, AJC has a formal partnership with Hillel International, and so we worked with Hillel's to really ensure that we could talk directly with college students and assess their lived experiences. And so this part we oversampled to really understand what students were experiencing. Obviously, we do not survey people under the age of 18 because you need to be an adult. So that is why we worked with Hillel on the 18 and up demographic on the oversampling. And so I want to touch on some of this for a few minutes. What we have found is no surprise, again, anybody watching what has happened on so many campuses and in K through 12 spaces, and of course on social media, is that American Jews have really had a significant increase and they feel targeted, especially at younger ages. Let's go to the next few slides. We're going to talk about this a little more. Over half of American Jewish college students don't feel safe and feel targeted if they outwardly show their Jewish identity. Again, that's no surprise. We all experience the encampments. We have been working together with university presidents and administrators and deans for student life in a very significant way from AJC. We have a Center for Educational Advocacy at AJC that we formally launched last June. And we've held a summit together with Hillel and with ACE, which is an umbrella organization for university presidents. It was intentionally behind closed doors. to have those tough conversations and hear from presidents and have university presidents speak with one another about what they were facing, some of their lessons learned, some best practices to share. And that's why we have seen some changes now. The most important thing that we have been working with university administrators on is time, place, manner policies. They all have them, but it is not enough to have those policies up on a shelf. It is about enforcing them. It is about being proactive in communicating them to faculty and students and ensuring that American Jewish college students feel safe, feel part of their campus, and that all students, of course, can safely access their classes. Let's keep going. And again, we've seen in the same way that American Jews writ large have changed their behavior or do not feel safe. We've seen the same of college students. Again, this is in the oversampling that we did this year as well. So half said that they avoided or experienced different things. In some cases, again, they may hide their Jewish identity. Um, they may feel unsafe on campus. They will not express to each other, to classmates, their views on issues. And we also know that people are holding back on social media. So something as simple as wishing people Shana Tova, we are seeing that many people, both younger and older, are withholding this simply out of fear of being Jewish in America today. And even with all of this, I want to say something that I think is vitally, vitally important. Even with all the challenges, the encampments, the protests, which sometimes have been very, very violent, we still see robust Jewish life on many campuses. And I think that that is really important that we underscore here. This is not an all doom and gloom. Jewish life on campus and in our communities and in our synagogues and in our Jewish day schools is vibrant, it's robust, and Jewish students know that they have a place to go. And so thank you for that, because that is the good news. And in many cases, we all know that that has increased, where Jewish students are leaning in to being Jewish publicly or with the Jewish community in a way that they haven't over the past number of years. Let's keep going. Again, 1 in 3 American Jewish students have experienced anti-Semitism in some form. For some people, by the way, that means that they weren't allowed to join a club. It could be an a cappella singing group, but we have seen that there are Zionism litmus tests that have been put into place on different campuses by anti-Israel, anti-Semitic individuals, and this is the unfortunate outcropping. Let's keep going. So we talked a little bit, and we say at AJC that we need to be swivel-headed about anti-Semitism. And so we really dove into that more in terms of our survey. Again, with Jews, and these are the findings. Again, the far right, the far left, and religious extremism, whether it's Christian nationalism or extremism in the name of Islam. Now, again, I want to be really, really clear here. This is not about pointing fingers at any religion or any religious practice. This is about extremism, and when that extremism is used against Jews. Let's keep going. Again, here's the good news, and here's the work we're all doing together. We see that there is very significant recognition across the American public about all of us needing to work together to uplift, to be upstanders for each other together. And let's go to the next one. This is very important because we have seen some of our own kids or students that we've interacted with, whether in high schools or in college, maybe joining some of these anti-Israel groups, sometimes intentionally, sometimes they don't know what they're saying, sometimes they join things because they want to make things better and they care deeply about others. But the good news in all of that is that caring about Israel is still very, very important to American Jews. And that is really, really significant, and we can take comfort in that today. And again, the wide recognition, the overwhelming recognition by the American public that the statement Israel has no right to exist is blatantly anti-Semitic is critically important. Let's keep going. So what can we do? Because it's not enough to Schweigewalt. It's not enough to understand these findings. It's very, very important that we be able to do things proactively and when necessary, reactively. So you have a QR code here on your screen, and we'll be able to share all of this and follow up with you as well. Again, AJC launched a Center for Educational Advocacy, and we've provided guidance and continue to provide guidance for K through 12 public and independent schools to work with these officials to ensure that the Jewish experience is part of the curriculum, to give them a 5-year calendar of Jewish holidays so that they can work in advance to ensure that AP exams are not given on Pesach, or to ensure that there's not a back to school night on Rosh Hashanah or on Yom Kippur, things like that. And to help them also understand what are those parameters? What does that mean when it's a Jewish holiday? What does that mean in terms of sports activities and things like that? We've also been providing guidance in terms of guest speakers for them, the ABCs of Jewish inclusion, which I'll show you in a moment, and an action plan that we've created both for public school and independent school administrators on confronting anti-Semitism. And again, we're happy to share all of that information with you. And I'll go into some of this again a little bit, but the key thing also that is so important and that we're very, very involved with, as is everybody, is not just being reactive. And this is about being proactive, but also about celebrating Jewish American Heritage Month. We know that all kinds of minority communities have a Heritage Month or a History Month, and that it's celebrated in schools, and it should be. We should all be learning about each other. And again, that celebrating our diverse communities is what makes our communities stronger, and we stand up together and with one another. So it is important to teach about the Holocaust, absolutely. But at the same time, we need to be teaching about contemporary Jews and contemporary Jewish contributions to our society. And so Jewish American Heritage Month, or JAM for short, is a very important way to do that. And we have guidelines and we have resources and toolkits that we're providing, again, for our schools, for government officials, and ensuring also that they're adopting the working definition of anti-Semitism. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, or IHRA, is the working definition of anti-Semitism. It is the gold standard. It was worked on by Holocaust experts, by anti-Semitism experts. AJC was part of that definition. And while it is not a legally binding definition, it is a very important tool so that officials, decision makers, opinion leaders, heads of schools, university presidents adopt this working definition. It is a proactive way for them to show the Jewish community that they take this seriously and stand together with the Jewish community. And let's go to the next slide. ABCs of Jewish inclusion: awareness, belonging, and communication. And that's part of what we're sharing with officials as well, and particularly in our schools. And it's ensuring that if they have a DEI club or if they have a DEI faculty member that is doing DEI programs, that the Jewish community, the Jewish students, the Jewish parents, depending, or in the workplace, the Jewish employees are part of DEI efforts and have a seat at the table. All too often, we have all seen that in DEI efforts, that Jews are considered white and privileged and not considered a minority and not included in this. We need to ensure that we are raising awareness in all areas of our communities to ensure that they are doing so. Part of what we're also talking about is making sure that in our workplace, in our government, in our communities, with our faith partners, that they really communicate clearly that hate of any kind is not acceptable, have those policies, be proactive about them, and then enforce those policies if there's a problem. Let's keep going. again, let's stop there. Let's go back to the slide before, and then we can stop screen sharing here and take any questions. So let's stop sharing, Jill, and then we'll all come on screen and we'll take any questions that you all have. And if you want to put your questions in the chat. Arlene, you mentioned liking the idea of the 5-year calendar for schools. We are happy to share this with everybody. Again, this is about all of us working to ensure that our officials have these tools, have these resources, and can really ensure that they are working together with our community to ensure that we feel safe and are safe. This group is quiet. I find that shocking.
This question, wondering if you have anything for workplaces to celebrate Jam, just anything you can share.
Yes, absolutely. We do. We have materials. We also have materials about ERGs, or employee resource groups. We have
Wonderful.
seen that in certain entities, certain corporate entities, that there are ERGs for many other minority communities. And when the Jewish community wants to put an ERG together, Jessica, we have seen that there's pushback because they will say things like, we don't have religious ERGs. We have minority community ERGs. So part of it is that we have a one-pager that we can provide on that. And we also can provide a briefing for corporate entities about anti-Semitism. And we've done many of these. And we find that when we do these briefings on anti-Semitism, then those entities understand that being Jewish is not what it seems at first blush. We are a people, we are a religion, we are a nation, that we are diverse, that we have significant diversity within the Jewish community. And so we're happy to provide that. We do, and I'll make a note and I'll give Pam that information. So we'll give you information about JAM for the workplace as well as ERG information. And again, if you want us to provide briefings for corporate partners, we are happy to do that. We do that for law firms. We do that for Fortune 500 groups, etc. So happy to do that. And thanks for the question, Jessica. I'll give you some examples, by the way, while everybody is thinking of questions. Some of the things that we've suggested and done with corporate partners for JAM is that we've done, food is always the great connector. So around some holidays, we say break bread together, invite people to bring together what they would have for Easter and what you would do, like a mini Seder. Or make a challah making event together where you can bring challah in, or you can do a mini kiddush together, or celebrate Hanukkah together. Because again, we need corporate entities in particular to understand that being Jewish is also cultural. And so if they come at it and understand the cultural aspects and how it is so much a part of all of our identities, they start to understand it and get involved in it and feel more comfortable with having Jewish ERGs and JAM celebrations. And again, we have a list of resources for JAM in the corporate workplace that we'll share. Let's see, I think I see Rabbi Pine. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for the partnerships. I'm also going to note that this Sunday from 2 to 4 at Shari Tefillah, we are doing a parents summit to combat anti-Semitism. And it is for parents of high school and college students. And we would love for you to share that out. It is not just for Northern Westchester, but it is in partnership with the synagogues in Northern Westchester. And it is about helping you as parents and helping our parents in our community, at our synagogues, at our JCCs, and our organizations feel empowered on how to deal with contemporary issues. So I'll give that information to Pam, and also Pam, you can share that out. We've sent this out widely, and And I know that WJC has sent this out in the newsletter as well. But by all means, and this is meant to be an interactive training. Again, it's for parents, but if students want to attend as well, they certainly can. And we have, again, our program called LIFT, Leaders for Tomorrow, which is for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. It is a 7-month program that kicks off every fall. Jill Friedman and Derek Grossman from our team lead it together. It is a national curriculum that we have at AJC. And I think there are opportunities to work with Federation as well for J-Teen and making sure that students involved in J-Teen who are learning how to be philanthropic leaders also learn to be strong advocates. So there's so much more that we can be doing together to really enhance the sense of pride and the advocacy tools and resources for everybody in our community together. And thank you, Jill, for putting the LIFT session in there. Part of what we do is in February, we take all our LIFT students or most of our LIFT students to Washington, D.C. for 3 days, where they put their advocacy skills together. They go to Capitol Hill. This year, in fact, I will share with you, especially for our community here, that our students met with Representative George Latimer, and from their meeting, literally Representative Latimer joined the Congressional Anti-Semitism Task Force. And then later he was in a meeting with AJC CEO Ted Deutsch. So when we talk about training our students to be strong Jewish advocates, there it is. And Representative Latimer was delighted to join the Anti-Semitism Task Force, and already such an incredible and strong partner for us, of course, for many years as county executive. And I say that in a nonpartisan way, but continuing this in Congress. And of course, so is Representative Mike Lawler, a very strong partner for us. And this is exactly why we are nonpartisan, because we are represented very strongly in both parties here in our community. Okay. Last chance for questions or comments. Terrific. Okay, well, again, I want to say thank you to Pam and to Elliot and everybody at Westchester Jewish Council for hosting this. The work that you do for our entire community is incredible, and your leadership and bringing together our whole community. Thank you to our rabbis and our synagogue presidents and our executives of Jewish organizations with whom we're so proud to partner, and with our leadership, working with our students and with Hillels of Westchester. We really, our community should be so strong and so proud. Everybody looks at our community and is so jealous by how engaged and incredible our leadership is. So may we continue to go from strength to strength. May we continue to reduce those numbers that we talked about in terms of some of the very difficult experiences that the Jewish community has continued to go through. And we really are working together. So I just want to say thank you and wish you an early happy Pesach. And again, hope you'll join us at the Parents Summit and many other programs together. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.